Today's guest is someone who embodies that truth through every layer of her work and story. Nerida Mills is a guide, a way shower, and a deeply intuitive practitioner whose life has been her curriculum. Her work invites us to explore healing as a form of self-leadership, where symptoms become signals and every challenge is a coded invitation back to our truest expression. With over 2 decades of lived experience navigating the complexities of Lyme disease, identity, and holistic healing, Nerida's mission is clear: to help people use their own life as the medicine it's always been. She's worked with corporate leaders, athletes, teenagers, stay-at-home mums, and visionaries alike, bringing together ancient wisdom and modern healing to activate deeper balance, courage, and sovereignty. This conversation is for anyone standing at the threshold of transformation, ready to meet life not as a series of obstacles, but as a precise, poetic guide towards truth. Let's drop in. Nerida, welcome to today's podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Nerida, your mission is to help people use their life as medicine. But what does that truly mean for you? And how did it emerge from your own journey?
Sure. So I guess I'm going to answer the second question first, if that's okay.
Of course.
Because it kind of flows in. So how it emerged from my own journey. I saw people that I love from a young age suffering unnecessarily in a story that was untrue. And I saw that compounded as I became an adult in various relationships that I had, where people were losing themselves to addiction, mental health issues, things like that. Particularly the father of my children was a very big mirror for this, in this for me. I also had a journey for myself around my physical healing. So unexplained physical symptoms for over 2 decades. I've got alopecia and my hair fell out when I was 19 and there was never any answers. So I always had these symptoms going on in my body that there was never any answers to. No doctors could ever resolve it. And I was always told I just needed to learn to live with it and it was nothing to be concerned about. And I'm like, I'm not freaked out about it, don't get me wrong, but it's a sign that something's off. I think we should pay attention. It just kind of makes sense to me that if there's something out of balance, there's an opportunity to rebalance it. And so the combination, I think, of both experiencing the fallout both in early childhood through my sister particularly, and then in the relationship with my kid's dad, of the mental health stuff at the same time as experiencing the physical health stuff. That combination really led me to want to minimize unnecessary suffering in my own life, because I could see it all starts within, right? So my whole journey, my whole career path has been built on me trying to understand myself, me trying to understand what creates my perception, and also what creates the decisions that people who I love have made in their life that I don't understand. So I've really wanted to just gain an understanding, because I think when we can understand where something comes from or why something's happening, it's like it gives it meaning, and then that meaning can really transform the way that we experience something, right? It can take it from that place of suffering to a place of gratitude, for example. And so, having the lived experience of moving as many things as humanly possible from that place of suffering to that place of gratitude, I, over time, really gained a very deep desire to be able to help other people to do the same. And back in 2018, unfortunately, my kid's dad suicided. And so really seeing the absolute, extremity of a delusion and the power of a delusion that we can buy into as people. His delusion, I'm obviously not in his head, and, we weren't on fantastic terms in the end because he was so distorted in the way that he was thinking about things. But, he fundamentally believed that he wasn't loved in a way that was accepting of who he was. And he communicated that in a number of different ways, shapes and forms over the years. And it's just not true. Like we went to his funeral and the place was packed out. There was hundreds of people there. People traveled from all over the country to pay their respects and things. And it's, I think that if he had been able to see that moment, maybe he would have made a different choice. If he'd been open to feel the love, maybe he'd made a different choice. Whatever. I mean, he made the choice that he made, and I trust in that as well. But there is no doubt that the suffering was present, and I believe that it was based on a delusion that is untrue. So that's a huge piece of it for me. I still see, we live in a very wealthy country, in a very peaceful time, in a very abundant society. We have more ease in our everyday life than I think human beings have ever had through the history of the human experience. And yet, right? And yet we're miserable, we're sick. And there is a piece missing in our experience that I think goes back to some of the fundamental ways in which we used to relate to life, predating our modern kind of boxed in singular perception of ourselves and others. And for me, if you look at what are the common threads through tribal societies around the world in the way that they would relate to life, historically, it was that they would see the small signs in things, right? They would see the symbology of things. They would see the lessons in things. They would see the opportunities in things. They looked at the bigger picture. They looked at, through astrology and things like that. They would look at the patterns in life. And, even there was a lot of societies that if somebody was mentally unwell, instead of ostracizing, isolating, they would bring in and train them as a shaman, right? Because the mental unwell wasn't seen that way. It was seen that they were highly sensitive and that they were able to access different information or different realms of experience than to other people. And that can create some agitation for the conscious mind. And so they were actually trained to be the healers. So there's a lot of ways in which we used to be that I think we've left, it's like we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. We've gotten all of this modern technology, but we've lost the ancient wisdom. And so, I don't believe that I'm teaching anything that hasn't been around for thousands of years. I think I'm just, reminding, if anything, what the psyche already knows to be true, which is that in every challenge, there is opportunity for growth. And the way that we perceive the challenge itself will provide us with the pathway to that growth through the language that we use. So, it's a really beautiful pathway, and it certainly helped me to heal myself. So, as you mentioned, I did go through the Lyme disease saga. Da, 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 da. It was like a whole thing. And, that was quite full on in particularly, I'd say, since 2020, like the fullness of the symptoms were really full on there. But even as far back as 2015, 2016, it's when it really started like hitting my nervous system, and that's way less fun. Like, it's just anything that attacks your nervous system is fucked. So, really losing the sense of who I am or how I can be in the world is just a shedding of identity after identity after identity after identity. And, finding out who you are without any of that is both excruciating and highly beneficial. So it's definitely been helpful for me to have the perspective of this constant learning, constant growth, constant looking for the reflection in all of it, including my body, because I think I would have probably gone insane without that. And I can see how people can spiral into decades of despair without it. It's, I definitely tipped my toe into despair a number of times through that journey. So I can see how easy it would be to lose yourself there as well. So I have a lot of compassion and empathy for people who are in that space. I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. That feels like one whole podcast, just that, like the energy of when you're speaking is is like an ocean. That answer was like one plunge down into the depths in and of itself. And before you, just at the very beginning when you were speaking, ancient wisdom was what was coming through, how I was feeling about what you were saying in that frequency. It felt old. And this is one of the again, one of the reasons why I wanted to chat to you, because I could feel that energy in the work that you're doing. And I love that you were talking about how what you're bringing through is a remembering. It isn't necessarily something new. It's new to you in a lot of ways, but it is not new. And that's how I feel about my work. And I feel like a lot of healers, therapists, change makers, they feel the same way. And
Absolutely.
it's exciting, but the only way to that is to go within. And you've turned the challenges, the obstacles, the despair, as you described it, into a remembering, instead of going into just falling into the shadow and staying there. And this is where we have a choice, and we were talking about that before the podcast started. It is a choice that you get to make every day about what you're going to do. You can choose to acknowledge it. There are lots of fucked up things that happen, terrible things that happen to us, what we're seeing outside of ourselves as well. But it is a choice that you get to make. Are you going to keep going? Are you going to stand at that long vision that we were talking about before the podcast? Are we going to anchor in back into our legacies, or are we just going to surrender and slide into the fear, into the shadow? And what you were describing was there were significant challenges that have happened to you, and yet you have chosen to step back in, to step and face yourself again and again and again in all of the aspects. And when you're talking about letting the old identities fall away, it feels very much like you are so familiar with the cycle of transformation, because nothing ever stays still. There's no one and done when it comes to transformation. It's not like, ta-da, I'm all fixed now, even though I so wish that was the case.
Anybody who's new on the journey, but you're in it for a while.
And the wheel moves, right? So you go up and fuck, that feels good. But you also have to come down to get to the next part, right? The wheel needs to move. You can't stay at the top. And sometimes you can stay at the top, the wheel pauses for a while and you can enjoy things, but you have to know that there is going to be another aspect that you're going to have to face eventually. And maybe it'll be a quick cycle, maybe it'll be a bit longer, but it is that. And when you are committed to the remembering, there has to be an acknowledgement that this is part of it. This is where the magic is. The magic is in the wheel moving, right?
Yeah. Well, I think some of the things that have really helped me along the way is, and I encourage people to kind of adopt this for themselves, is like really formulating a sense of self that there is no other option. Right? For me, there is no other option. What is the other option? That I spiral into despair and I completely experience the rest of my life in darkness and shadow. I don't know. I like adventure way too much for that. I like the sunshine. I like nature. I love laughter. I actually feel like life is truly, truly feel like life is a gift. It's one of my favorite things to be alive. I just think it's fantastic. So for me, there is no other option. That you can't even have it as an option. It doesn't mean, again, that you don't, you dip your toe in there every now and then. It's sort of like the victim aspect of the expression of self. Like we're gonna dip our toe in. It's inevitable because it's part of the human experience. But fuck, don't live there. Do not live there. It's not an enjoyable experience. Nobody likes that. You're not gonna have fun. You're not gonna get what you want. It's just not gonna work for you. So the only way out sometimes is through stubborn determination. Right? Through literally a reckoning of there is no other option. I have to find a way. And I am so committed for myself, I'm so committed to finding that way, and I'm impatient and I'm lazy, um, and um, and I'm a bit of a control freak. And so the combination of those three things means that I'm always looking for the most efficient way, right? I don't want to just find the way. I want to find the fastest, easiest way because I can't be fucked. Like
Yeah.
I'm not interested in doing it the hard way anymore. I did that all the way through my 20s and it sucked. So, now I'm just like, we're on a time clock here, people. Like we are mortal beings. You don't have
Yeah.
forever to work this shit out. Like at what point is enough enough?
Mm.
At what point are you done with your suffering? Because, like you say, there is an element of it that is a choice. There is, and I say an element because there is the hand of God that we can't deny that is going to take you down certain paths that you have to go down in order to get the medicine that is you and bring it forth into the world. Like there's that
Yeah.
element that it's where you get your legs taken out from underneath you, literally in my case. Um, and so, we have that, but we also have a choice in that around, well, what do I choose to do? Who do I choose to be in that, right? In the lack of control, who do I choose to be?
Mm.
Where do I control in the lack of control? And I think that's a really important question because if you can get really honest with yourself around what do I control in the lack of control, because 99.999% of your life is out of your control.
Mm.
you know, as much as I am a control freak, like that's one of the recognitions that I've had to really truly own is that there's a lot that's out of my control. I can't control the weather, I can't control politics, and I don't want to. Like I've fantasized about being a politician for a while, but fuck, I don't know. No, I can't. I can't control what another person is going to think of me. I can't control the perception of the outer world based on a bullshit projection that they might see snippets of there's so much that I can't control. I can't control my children are now getting older, but even when they were younger, you can't always control the safety of the children. There's so much that we can't control that we want to hold on to and delude ourselves that we have control over. You don't control any of that. What you can control, however, is how you choose to be in your life. I get to choose who I show up as in my life. I get to choose the moments that I step into my victimhood and the moments that I step out of it. I get to choose the moments that I lose myself into my sorrow, and I get to choose the moments where that's enough. It's time to move on, right? I get to choose if I am reflecting into my challenge and looking at, where's the reflection point here? Like, how am I describing this situation? I'll give you an example if you'd like. So this is a recent one for me. And so this year I was activated by someone in the industry, I'm not naming names, someone in the industry that was delivering a offering and they were hyper available for the sale. And then in the delivery, crickets, right? And it is one of my pet peeves in the industry is the really like highly charismatic salespeople who are not around for integration. They might be even there for the transformation, right? So they're really great at sales, really great at transformation, fuck all with integration. Where I'm, my work is really based around integration. That is everything that I'm talking about. It's like, how do you apply it into your life? Who do you be in your life? Not just what awareness do you have. And so, that it was really activating me to the point where I was just like having a bit of a bitch and a moan, as we do. And I was like, okay, I've got to clean this up for myself because I can feel it pulling me, and distracting me away from where I should be. But it was pulling me. And so there's obviously something in it for me at the same time. I just don't want to stay in here longer than necessary. So why is it pulling me? Where, what is it actually trying to get me to do? And one of the offerings that he was delivering is something that some of my clients started asking me to deliver, which is coach training, basically. And another pet peeve of the industry is coaches being pumped out with very, very little training, very, very little support, and then going out into the world and telling other people how to live their life. I'm like, fuck me. Like that is a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. And so it was really activating for me because I'm not just seeing like the impact of the immediate clients, I'm seeing the impact of their clients, right? And it's just like, this is like, we have such a huge responsibility as practitioners to clean our bucket, to make sure that as much as possible we are clean vessels, so that when we're with someone and we're being with that person, we are with that person and we're owning our reflections in it rather than projecting our shit through them. Like it's dangerous to do that to people. And so, I'm seeing this massive spread. And then at the same time, like my clients are like, hey, is there any chance that you would teach us how to coach like you? And I'm like, this is irritating the shit out of me and they want me to do it. Fuck. Okay, clearly like the universe is pushing me now in this. So I just said yes and we figured it out. And I'm currently in the process of my first cohort of students, which is fantastic. But then there was another layer to it, which was the language that I was using to describe this person was unreliable and inconsistent. Unreliable and inconsistent. I was just like, he's so fucking unreliable. He's inconsistent. It's not okay. Blah, 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 blah. So it's important to listen to the language that we use to describe certain things, particularly when we are in that projection state of being, because the emotive hooks in the language that we have are the reflection points that we have to own and embrace and tweak. Let's just tweak the quality of our expression to get better results, right? And so for me, the inconsistency and the unreliability. So the question had to become, where am I being unreliable? Where am I being inconsistent, right? Because if I'm seeing it out here, it means it lives here. And so then the opportunity for my growth had nothing to do with him. He was a beautiful activation point. I now got a lot of gratitude for him. I can't wait to go and see him and give him a big hug and be like, you're a fucking crazy person, but thank you. And really look at, okay, well, where am I doing these things? Where am I lacking in that for myself? And so for me, I've had a big journey with my spirituality, and I opened myself to a spiritual practice. I mean, we're all spiritual beings. It doesn't matter what you do, but I opened myself to a spiritual practice in my late teens and held that through until about 32, when it was like the messy separation was really taking hold. And there was a lot of association there with my ex to my spiritual practice. And so baby went with the bathwater and both got left behind. And since then, I have been trying to reclaim that practice for myself. And just recently, it's kind of, a new wave of inspiration has come through. But that's the piece for me, right? So now it's like, well, can I move with my spiritual practice in a way that is consistent and reliable? Because for me, that is going to enable my capacity in how I'm then delivering the thing that I was not happy with him delivering. So it's sort of like we're always given exactly what we need, not just to actually move us towards where we need to be, but to give us the capacity to do it at our best. And that was just one activation. That's just one activation. Like you are constantly surrounded by the path of how to become the best version of yourself, and the best thing about all of this is predominantly it's free. I mean, sometimes, we learn these lessons by investing in shit and then getting activated by it. Right? This is part of it. Sometimes we invest in things, gain new awarenesses, and then we have to put that new awareness, important part, guys, you need to put the new awareness into practice, into your life, right? And that's how we actually learn and grow. But a lot of it is actually free and available simply through the relationships that you have in your life. How are you relating to money? How are you relating to your spouse? How are you relating to your kids? How are you relating to yourself? Like the dynamics that we play hold so much fucking gold. So, again, efficiency.
Yes.
Get it, learn, move on.
I mean,
and so what we're doing
yeah.
in this is just like if I was to stay with that story in regards to this person and just let it run and not do anything with it, the amount of agitation I would be in would be extended over a long period of time, right? I might hold that agitation for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. You can hold on to a grudge for a long fucking time. So there's the point of activation, which is necessary suffering, We have to have suffering in life. You can't escape it because it draws your awareness in an instant, right? So we don't want to try and avoid the suffering, but we want to utilize it. So as close to the activation as possible, if you can take it and transform it into the growth, then what we do is we minimize the amount of time we're in suffering and we maximize the amount of time we're in grace. And like, that's the magic sauce to me.
Yes, minimizing the suffering and maximizing the grace. I love that. That is
Yeah.
so
Both are
true.
necessary.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And also the the fact that you were describing, you don't necessarily need to do a course or have the specific treatment or do anything specifically. You can just start acknowledging the people around you to see what needs to be reflected on, what needs to be transmuted, what needs to be owned. And
Yeah. Just look at your own projections.
Yeah.
Start there.
Yeah.
If you literally just start with your own projections, you will have massive growth.
Absolutely. All the things that are irritating you are the things that need to be acknowledged and integrated, like you were saying. It needs to be integrated in. And you're right, family members, friends, bank accounts, all the things, the world, the way that it is, there are lots of different areas that are pissing you off. They are activating you in so many different ways all the time throughout the day. But all of that is, as you said, to strengthen you as an individual, to make sure that you are owning all the parts of you so that you can be your fullest expression. Yeah. And I think that that's such an important reflection. And now more than ever, that is really where the work is, don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Awareness. I mean, we have so much information.
Yeah.
Right. We're beyond the age of information now. And because, Google whatever it is that you want, the answer is there. You have the information of how to change, of what to do, right? We don't need support in that. Where the support is now being called forth and where the empowerment is now being called forth, I believe, is in the integration. Because all of the information in the world doesn't get you off your ass and to the gym.
Yeah.
Right? We know how to be healthy. Everybody knows how to be healthy, but that doesn't necessarily meet the edge of the emotion that you're trying to suppress when you go and have another piece of cake.
Yep.
Right? How do we be with that emotional state, that insecurity? How do we meet ourselves in loving kindness through the edges of our experience? I mean, that's a whole different ball game. And I think that is really like one of the biggest pieces for me that makes the biggest difference, is that I think a lot of people have been trained through, the way we've been raised, the way we've been educated, the way that the movies are projected, the way society is at large, to, if you're not getting the results that it is that you want, that you should beat yourself up about it, right? That your self-punishment is massive, right? The way that we relate to ourselves is really nasty most of the time. And there's a lot of self-punishment in the evolution, or the attempt of the evolution of the soul, which is a little bit contradicting. So one of the biggest pieces for me in regards to actual integration of this work is the self-kindness piece. Yeah. Because if you're beating yourself up to self-love and then you're projecting that you're this person that just loves themselves and light and love and fucking angels and whatever, but then in the background, you're speaking to yourself like a piece of shit. I'm sorry, you don't have it.
Yeah.
You've got more work to do. I'm a little bit ridiculous with it. I have a lot of fun with myself, because I think that A, why would you take yourself seriously? And B, there's enough suffering. Let's have some fun. So I try and bring joy into my life in the most ridiculous ways humanly possible. And so in regards to how I encourage myself, it's literally like I'm hanging my washing on the line and I'm like, fuck, you've done an amazing job. They look so pretty. They look amazing. You did so well. Just like little moments of appreciation, little moments of encouragement. Well done, Nerida. You just made dinner for the family. Fucking high five, or you just sent that email. I know you had some edge around that. Good job. Like, I high five myself all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and looking at from outside looking in, like my kids laugh at me all the time, but what's beautiful is that I now see them do it. And I just love that. I love it because yes, it's silly, yes, it's playful, but yes, it's meaningful.
Mm.
And as a foundation to the relationship with yourself, I would much prefer to over encourage and over appreciate than anything else because my experience is, well, twofold in regards to this. One is that all of the success in the world means diddly squat if you hate yourself. It doesn't mean anything, right? So I would prefer to be a pauper that has a shit relationship with myself. That's not true. I'd prefer to be wealthy and have an amazing relationship with myself. But, secondary to that, I would prefer to have no money and have an amazing relationship to myself than the opposite way around. And the other thing is that if you actually look at the people who do move forward successfully in the endeavors that they're trying to achieve on a regular basis, they speak to themselves with encouragement. They speak to themselves with kindness. They surround themselves with people who will challenge their way of thinking, but who actually adore them. The self-punishment, it doesn't work. And if you want evidence for that, look at your life.
Yes,
It doesn't
absolutely.
work.
Yeah. It is the self-compassion and self-kindness piece is undervalued in a lot of ways. I think people hear that and are flippant about it. Like, yeah, I know I've got to be kinder to myself. And it's in that tone where it's like, that doesn't really change anything, but it absolutely changes things.
Changes everything.
I
It changes everything.
Yeah, I spend 5 minutes at least every day. I force myself to, in my journaling to sit and acknowledge something positive about myself, about what I perceive to be achieved, or what I feel like is, what I'm really doing well. It's just something, anything. Because if I don't, that the day gets away and I'm not even thinking about anything that I've done positively. It's very easy for the brain, especially if you've experienced trauma or you're going through a lot of challenge, all the things that get thrown at you. It's very easy to slide into the I'm not good enough. So our systems around us, social media even, it perpetuates that you don't have enough, you're not good enough, you still haven't achieved enough, you're not being recognized enough, you're not the list goes on and it's endless. That's one of the best bits about it.
The
That
story,
list.
I'm not good enough, fuels billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars across a multitude of industries. That story, that one story, because it's the fundamental driver to everything.
Yeah.
But I think there's a couple of things to be aware of in this conversation. One is that there's three things that drive every single human being, regardless of where you live, where you were raised, who you are, all of the things. And these happen from very early in childhood. The three questions are, am I good enough? Do I belong? And am I loved?
Yeah.
That's it. Those three things, which means every single insecurity that you have stems from one of those things, right? So we know, and that's not going anywhere. It's primarily inbuilt, locked in, fucking, this is what makes you a human being, to have those fears, right? To have those insecurities. You are locked into that. I actually had a conversation with my sister the other day, and she said, I've realized that it all comes back to this story. And she goes, can you help me? And I said, yeah, sure. I said, do you want the good news or the bad news? And she was just like, fucking lay it on me, Nerida. And I was like, well, okay, good news is you're not alone. Bad news is it ain't going anywhere. And she just went, are you serious with me right now? Absolutely. It's not going anywhere. But it's like suffering. Suffering doesn't need to go anywhere. The story of I'm not good enough, it doesn't need to go anywhere. But what we can do is we can tweak our relationship or association to it. How much do you believe it? Right? What weight do you place on it? And what are the behaviors that come through you as a unconscious protection mechanism against it? You can tweak those when you bring awareness to it. So whilst the story's not going anywhere, the way that you relate to it can absolutely fundamentally transform. And you can hold yourself in that feeling of I'm not good enough, because it's going to come up again and again and again in different layers, in different forms, and in different faces, in through our life experience. So it's really important to recognize that that's just part of being human. And I think the humanness of our experience is often also severely discounted, right? Recognize that you're a human being. It's supposed to suck, right? There's elements of life that are just going to be hard. It doesn't mean that you're a failure or that there's anything wrong with you. It means that you're a human having a human experience, and part of that experience is sorrow. Part of that experience is heartbreak. Part of that experience is guilt and shame and all of the things, right? We fuck up more times than we can count. But where we can counterbalance this is in our understanding that the mind needs 10 positive access points to one negative. So the mind is hardwired to the negative, right? Because that's the protection mechanism of the mind. We want to avoid the negative. And so it's really like hyper focused on the negative. So to counterbalance any negative story or to counterbalance any negative association or experience, we need 10 positives to outweigh it. So again, it's just good to know, right? Every time, like you're saying, you've got to force yourself there because the mind's going to hold on to that one negative thing that happens in the day and it's going to forget the 9 positive things. So we want to push it over the limit so that we balance ourselves out, if not kind of, give ourselves a little bit more positive.
Absolutely.
Which is why.
And I think we underplay the things that we do really well. And I think Australians just generally underplay all of the good things about themselves because we've got the tall poppy syndrome crap that goes on. So that's sort of part of our culture. So I feel like we have to be more conscious about that self-reflection, that positive self-reflection. When you look at people in America, they don't have that as part of their culture. They acknowledge what they do well. They are set up to embrace the best parts of themselves and boast about it. But in Australia, we're like I said, we're not like that. So even more reason for us to pay that attention, because it is what keeps our inspiration going. It's what keeps our hope going. It keeps our energy up. It keeps our nervous system calm as well. And it is a very big support. You were speaking about following breadcrumbs, and I'm curious to know, with the experience that you had with Lyme disease, which is very unusual in Australia in particular, how were you rewiring your symptoms and the signs and the different things that was coming up for you then?
Good question. So I mean, I want to say one thing. Lyme's disease is not as well spoken about in Australia.
Yep.
I don't necessarily believe that that means that it's not as present in Australia.
Okay.
I think it's just undiagnosed, which is a huge part of the challenge, is the AMA doesn't recognize Lyme's exists in this country and is spread in this country. I personally would have gotten Lyme's in California when I was 18, 19. So it's sort of like, okay, well, yeah, maybe it's not here, but we live in a global society. I think it's time that we start paying attention to global health issues, and instead of just dismissing it and looking at, well, what's the easy solution? What's the easy answer? No. So I was very lucky to have a doctor who was willing to look a little bit deeper after a lot of doctors who were not. Which is how I came across the diagnosis, because I'd never even heard about it before.
Yep.
So, the diagnosis for me came in 2022, 2023. 2023. I really need to write this shit down. I think it was 2023. And it was after a number of years, 3 really full-on symptoms. And one of the things that really helped me is that I had studied to be a psychosomatic practitioner in 2017, thankfully. And part of the drive for that study was I wanted to understand where the emotional hook was for me in all of the symptoms that I'd had for the previous decade and a half, nearly 2 decades by that time. And so I was trying to understand myself, and I figured if I could help other people, fucking bonus. But I really wanted to get a hold of my own symptomology. So this was just after I had done my first severe bout with chronic fatigue. And coming through that, I was working with a lady who had just studied psychosomatic therapy. And I knew her. I knew that she would become a teacher as fast as she could. It was just in her nature. And so I said to her, I was like, as soon as you become a teacher, you let me know. I want to study under you. And it took until 2017 for me to be able to do that. So once I had the official training, I guess it helped. I'd always had an understanding innately that emotions had a part to play in physical expression. I don't know where that came from. I can't tell you, but it was from a really young age. I remember seeing, even as a teenager, I remember seeing people playing out patterns of their past, emotional patterns of their past, and going, fuck, if you don't fix shit, it just keeps on happening. So I saw that 14, 15, I recognized that. And then I remember, like, when my hair fell out, I knew that there was going to be an emotional association in some way. It was kind of more like a whispering, though, back then. It's probably something to look at, Nerida. It wasn't really the freight train. You have no other option but to look at this, but there was a knowing there, which developed over time. So by the time I think it was 22 or 23, maybe, might have even been a bit older. Fuck, I can't even remember. It was in my 20s anyway. I had an experience where I connected my hair loss to an emotional experience and realized that it was a reflection of, or the manifestation of, the way that I had felt rejected, which just, high five to my body, because if you're going to reject something, hair is a good option. You know what I mean? Like, I really like my limbs. I like being able to dance. I like being able to be silly and expressive. And so I'm grateful at the path that my body chose to do that, whilst drawing my awareness to the remedy, which if rejection is the issue, the remedy must be acceptance. Has to be.
Yeah.
Right? What are the options? Yeah. So then from that point, my focus became all about self-acceptance. So after the study through psychosomatic therapy, I guess I got more refined in that understanding. I got a lot more detailed with the interpretation. But one of the things that I love about the body is that it's so fucking literal. Like, it's just, it doesn't have the ability to lie, and it doesn't have the ability to fluff. It's really like, well, what is that part of the body used for? Look at how you're doing that in a behavioral standpoint, and you're probably going to have a step forward, right? So, for example, like, if you do something with your feet, obviously it's drawing awareness to how you move forward, right? How you ground, how you support yourself, things like that, particularly if you've got back issues at the same time. So really, like, the part of the body that is being activated is the part of the body from a behavioral standpoint or an emotionally expressive standpoint that is also getting drawn into the awareness. And so for me, when the nervous system got activated, what is your nervous system? Your nervous system is your ability to sense the world. It's your ability to relate with the world, because it directs the muscles. It really is the foundation of everything that your body does, right? And so it's a big one. And so there was lots of layers to that for me. And I feel like one of the gifts in Lyme's was that it really did force my acceptance around my own sensitivity to things. And as a child, I was raised in a very typical 80s household. My dad was in the Navy. My mum was in childcare. If it ain't broke, you're not bleeding to death, or I can't see something popping out of you, I don't want to know about it. Don't want to hear about it. Get out and play. Like, there wasn't a lot of time for the emotional sensitivity requirements that I may have had. And so that part of me really did get suppressed in the desire to be accepted and to be loved and to be what my parents wanted me to be, not out of any ill whatever. My parents love me very much. I don't have any doubt around that. But that's just how it played out, right? And so part of my becoming has been a reconnection to that sensitivity, which holds so much benefit in my capacity to tap into being present to another person's healing. So it's part of that kind of loop around the purpose of all of my experience as to the legacy that I'm here to leave as well. So yeah, I was able to really kind of unpack symptom by symptom what was going on. Well, my legs are losing because I literally lost the ability. My legs would feel like all of the tissue, it sounds weird, but all of the tissue of my legs felt like it had turned into a jellyfish. And then my bones felt like they had turned into rubber. And so I felt like when I was walking, you know, when a giraffe first takes its steps and they're like wobbly as fuck. That's how I would explain it to people. I feel like a baby giraffe trying to walk. Like there was no stability. There was no strength in how I was moving in my life. And that was playing out physically through the symptoms that I was having. Which is interesting because this all kind of unfolded a year and a half after my ex suicided. And so, you know, the grief of that experience really made me question a lot of who am I, and, you know, what impact did I have in regards to the decisions that he made, and you know, how am I showing up for my kids now as they are grieving their dad, and, you know, there was a lot. And so I think that kind of started manifesting through these these symptoms that I was having. Another one for me was the slowing down of the mind, and which was very frustrating. I like to think on my feet. I like to be, you know, getting me to talk is not the issue. It's getting me to shut up that is the issue, right? So I'm a big communicator. I am highly extroverted, and that ability was really taken for a period of time. So I found it really challenging to connect my thoughts to my words and express them. Found it really, really challenging to think beyond the basics of things. So, and this is where I have a lot of compassion for people who are in these sorts of states, because people go, well, just figure out how you're going to, like, I couldn't research. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have the mental capacity to go down rabbit holes and to try and find your own answers. Like, it's so fucking hard. You know, even I'm stubborn as hell, and I definitely tried, but I also pulled in a lot of support from people around me.
Yep.
So, you know, even in that, it's sort of like, well, my ability to think in the old ways was being taken. I had to start thinking in new ways. I had to start expressing in new ways. It was really the forced application, which is one of the kind of efficient pathways through challenge, I find, is if you look at what is the forced application, what am I being forced to do here? So the forced application for me was slow down, stop being everything for everybody else, feel, be present with yourself, and focus on what matters.
Yeah.
That's the forced application. And the last piece, and I guess this was probably the biggest piece of all of it, was start prioritizing myself. I had to come first.
Yep.
I absolutely had to come first. There was no other option. And I had to come first financially. I had to come first with my time. I had to come first even beyond my children. Like, it was excruciating, you know, for chronic people pleaser over here to really make that shift. But there was no other way for me to get it. And this is what I think, you know, it's important to understand. When life is pushing you somewhere, it's pushing you because it's been trying to get you to see something for such a long period of time, and you're ignoring it, or you're fighting against it. And so it's just going to keep on getting louder and more forceful until you get it. And it will do, because it loves you. Life loves you, and it's there to support you and to support the evolution of your soul. It will literally do whatever it fucking takes. It took my legs. It took my capacity to fucking think properly. It took my capacity to be anything to anybody away so that I would get that I'm more than that. You know, and I think the piece of the psychosomatics that really, really helped me is that there was two really big things that I learnt, probably more than that. Let's say three really big things that I learnt in my training of psychosomatic therapy. One was that the relationship with myself, between my masculine and my feminine, was everything. And just focusing in on elevating my feminine energy as a protection mechanism around the trauma that I experienced in the relationship wasn't going to cut it, because my masculine energy was then suppressed. and downtrodden and ignored. And that's just as much a part of me as my feminine energy. And while he is suffering, she can never excel, right? Until both partners are in a place of mature expression and partnership, neither will truly excel. And so that was one of the pieces that I got, is really claiming all of myself, not just the parts that I was comfortable with. The other part that I got through the psychosomatics was that my body is not punishing me. My body is not punishing me. No matter what you're going through, your body is not punishing you. Even though it feels like it at times. It's still not the case. And much like body, our body is life, right? We are nature, we are the universe. So the same thing applies. Life is not punishing you. It's always trying to bring you home to the fullness of the expression of who you truly are. And so having that awareness was really, really helpful. And then the third piece of it was having the ability to specifically unpack, this is the issue that I'm going through today. What is the fastest way to get the lesson here? Like, what do I actually need? So to be a lot more responsive to my body's, what's the right word? Impulses. To be more responsive to my body's impulses, my needs, and my unconscious yearning or repulsion away from and towards things, which was ultimately how I healed the Lymes. And I've actually got no signs of Lymes in my body at all anymore, which across the world, people say that that's not possible. So I believe that the body can heal anything if in alignment with the person's journey here in this plane of existence. So I think that it is a great gift to tap into your sensitivity, to really feel into what is right for you, to have the courage to say yes to those things and to say no to that which is not, regardless of how attached you have been to them in the past. And then to have the self-belief, self-encouragement, and self-appreciation to move forward consistently in new ways, right? And that is a constant fucking evolution and growth, because it's like, okay, yeah, cool, I know who I am now. And then 6 months later, it's like, oh, but there's another layer. Okay. So, to dance in that though, rather than being so dogmatic and serious about it, I like a lot of people that I work with say to me, at what point is enough? Or they'll say, oh, but I've already worked on this. So that means that everything that I've done up until now hasn't actually been what I thought it is. And I'm like, no, 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 no. We're the whole universe works in cycles, right? Yeah. We are constantly cycling around the middle of the galaxy. We're cycling around the sun. We're literally spiraling through space. Everything happens in this circular kind of movement. So is it any surprise really that you're going to come back and meet a new layer of an old story? Of course, like that's the way that we pull back the layers of that story and really get to that root core of the truth that lies underneath it all, which is that you're fucking brilliant exactly how you are. Like, just there's the little side note, shortcut to the truth.
Yeah. And it is, the metaphysical aspects are they tell you what is sitting underneath it all, and you just have to be curious about things. I had that experience a couple of years ago as well, and while I was getting a blood transfusion, I had a double blood transfusion, and while I was lying there getting this new blood sort of pumped in, I'm literally looking up the metaphysical reasons for what was going on for me, and that kicked off the work that I'm doing now. And it's there, the information is there. And I appreciate you sharing about Lyme disease. I only recently heard about it because one of the Hadid's celebrity young girls has got that. And I Googled it, what it is, because I was just curious. And that was before before I asked you to be on the podcast. I had no idea. And it was Google who said it's only in America. It's not here in Australia. So I'm really glad that you brought that information in. I think that's really important, because there's obviously people who are suffering with symptoms of
Absolutely.
all
And I have
kinds.
through
Mm.
Yeah, through my journey, I have met people who did contract Lyme's in Australia as
Yeah,
well. Um, and so, you
yeah,
know, I mean, it's been around. They found Lyme's disease or the Borrelia bacteria. They found it in can't remember the cave person's name that they named them, but the cave person that they found about a decade ago or something from fucking, tens of thousands of years ago.
yeah,
Like we've been in relationship to the Borrelia bacteria
yeah,
since the dawning of humanity.
yes.
It's like, oh, but it doesn't exist on this one landform, even though
Mm.
like all of the landforms were together when we all had that.
Yeah.
I
And
again, if as long as you don't think too hard on it, it makes sense.
yes, yes. Yeah, otherwise it starts to hurt the brain. But the autoimmunes, I'm interested in your perspective about this. This is not something that I've shared about or have even asked anybody else. But given that you have had chronic fatigue and Lyme disease, that obviously affects the autoimmune as well. It
Yeah, I have three autoimmune conditions as a result of Lyme's disease. Yeah. So I
yeah,
have alopecia, which is an autoimmune condition.
yeah,
I've been diagnosed with colitis, and I was diagnosed with a functional neurological disorder as
yeah,
well.
yeah. Wow.
Um, and so it's so funny. When I spoke to the neurologist at the point of diagnosis of the functional neurological disorder, I've already been through 20 years with the medical industry at this stage. Don't get me wrong, I love the medical industry. Very, 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 very good for emergency medic. Like I've got lots of amazing things to say there. Chronic health conditions, not so much. And so I said to him, I said, functional neurological disorder, that's the diagnosis, because they were thinking that it could have been MS for a period of time. And he goes, yep, that's the diagnosis. And I said, okay, so could you tell me exactly what that means, functional neurological disorder? And he said, well, it means that your nervous system isn't working the way that it should. And I'm like, yes. So could you tell me what that actually means? And I said, is this literally I just want to clarify with you, is this an umbrella statement that you give to all neurological conditions that you don't know how to explain? And he said, yes.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Great. So alopecia is a umbrella statement that is put on to any hair loss conditions that they don't know how to explain. They don't know what causes it. They don't know why it's happening, right?
yeah,
I think a lot of, and again, I'm not a medical practitioner, I am not trained, whatever. My experience, this is definitely coming from a my experience point of view. My experience is when they don't know how to explain why something's happening, we call it autoimmune condition. Because what is happening essentially is the body is not working to the optimal functionality of it. And instead of working towards the optimal health, it's fighting against it in a way. So, from a psychosomatic standpoint, when we look at autoimmune conditions, what we see is a part of self fighting self,
yeah, yeah,
right? And a feeling part of self fighting self when it comes to the neurological, a digestive part of self fighting self, the way that I'm digesting life when it comes to the digestive system. From a hair standpoint, it's expressive, right? So it's how I express myself. It's also how I am, like the hair is associated with the crown chakra, so it's how I connect out to the universe. And it's also my history, how I connect to my history, because you can see literally how your lifestyle through a strand of hair, it holds the lifestyle remnants. So, the fighting of self in those elements as well. So anything associated with the autoimmune condition tends to lead a conversation around what parts of that expression for yourself are
mm,
you uncomfortable about, or do you not like about yourself,
yeah,
or have you yet to really accept and own about yourself, right? So, which is a very interesting conversation. Like I say, I kind of connected the hair loss in my 20s. I'm now 43. So I have been working for 20 years looking at layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of self-acceptance. Like
yeah,
it's all about my career is literally built now on helping people to accept and express all of themselves. I've built a career based on my own healing journey,
Yeah.
but that's the fucking point of it, right? That's why I've been through what I've
That's
been
right.
through to give me the tools, the strategies, the knowledge, the integration of what it is that I'm here to teach. So,
For sure.
yep,
I,
that's where the loop comes back.
absolutely. I think there are a lot of people who have autoimmunes without
Mm.
autoimmune issues without realizing, and
Yeah,
and why I feel that and think that is because I have Epstein-Barr, and most people have that. That's a
yeah,
hereditary issue, and it stays dormant until you have a series of trauma that it activates, and
yeah,
there's 4 different
yeah.
levels. And I was functioning, if you will, in the world at level 4 for the good part of 10 years until I realized, this is actually not normal, being fatigued to this level all the time, and all these
Yeah.
things. I was working hard and training hard like a maniac, and I was keeping my cortisol
That's
at,
true.
you
That's
know,
true.
yeah, 20 out of 10 for years like that. And so my nervous system, uh, we're working it down, but it is still active. And I have to diligently spend time nurturing that part of me and that part of my nervous system so it doesn't activate. And but when I'm going through breakthroughs, like we had to postpone our podcast because last week I had swollen glands. That is part of a cycle that I was going through where it reactivates, and it's like it's talking to me. My body is talking to me to say,
Always.
hey, okay,
Always.
you are in a frightened state about having to express this part of you, to share this part of you. And I did it anyway. I recorded a video and I said, hey, I'll just, I feel like I'm sharing more of my voice, and boom, I had a flare up. And it is, that's not a coincidence. And
No.
instead of thinking my body is punishing me and I'm always going to be like this and why can't it, I just think, all right, well, there is some gentleness, and that the integration part helps to nurture any conditions we have, whether it's an autoimmune or something else. But it is always there.
Yeah.
Our bodies are always there giving us that feedback. And I really appreciate you sharing how you're approaching that side of things and how you work through that. I think that's going to be very helpful for the people that are listening. It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Well, look, I think ultimately if I mean, without any form of training or whatever, if you, like I said before, if you can look at where am I being forced, right? So
Yeah.
the 4 questions that I encourage everybody to ask is, what is this forcing me to embrace, to adopt, to express, or to let go?
Yeah.
If you can answer that question, you've got a shortcut to the outcome that you actually need to take action on, right?
Yeah.
To be able to resolve the thing faster, move through the next layer, reduce the amount of suffering, increase the amount of grace. Just answer one of those 4 questions, or that question, then you're going to be able to move forward. The other thing that I just wanted to touch on is, you've spoken a lot about the nervous system, and the nervous system is everything.
Yeah.
So, and the like we like to listen to the body when it's loud, but my encouragement is listen to the body when it's quiet,
Yeah.
right? Listen to those, because then it doesn't need to get loud.
Yeah.
Listen to the niggly sensations, right? The nervousness that you get around doing something, or like that little repulsion around, no, I don't know if I want to do that thing, right? Or ooh, I would like to do that thing, right? Like follow what juices you up, literally, right? When your saliva glands get juicy or when your genitals get all turned on, like go in that direction, you know? Whereas when you're feeling repulsed by something, to acknowledge and to really honor that. When we did make the commitment to treat the limes, it was a really hard decision to make because limes release toxins as they die. Super fun. Um, and it literally puts you back into like your most severe symptoms. And to me, that was terrifying. I was like, I don't want to do that at all. And also, up until that point, the only treatment that we could find that was going to remotely get the outcomes that we're looking for is hypothermia treatment, which is heat therapy. So taking your body temperature, your core temperature, beyond, I think it's 41.5 from memory, and holding it there for hours at a time. And basically the limes can't live in that temperature, and so they have a mass die-off. You have a mass flare up, and then you need some support, and then you go again, and you just keep on doing that until there's nothing left. Obviously there's risks in that, and it's also really fucking expensive. So it was looking at like $70,000, $80,000, and at least 3 months of me away from home with the family. And so there was a lot of reasons why I was hesitating into going into the fullness of that treatment. And my partner pulled me aside and he said, if you think that you are avoiding the family suffering by you suffering, you're kidding yourself. He didn't say it in those words, but it was pretty much to that kind of jugular punch delivery. And because I'd convinced myself that I just need to suck it up. We can't afford that kind of investment at the moment, and I'll just deal with the suffering. I'll deal with it as quietly as possible. I was kind of at a point where I was maintaining my life. I could work 4 days a week, and then I was fucked for the next 3 days. And so, you know, it was sort of at that, it wasn't super bad, but it also wasn't great. And so anyway, he called me on it, and he just said, Nerida, you're 40. Like, how do you want to live the rest of your life? Is this it? Is this what you're doing? And so I was like, fuck, really had to sit with that again, another layer of that prioritization of self. And the beautiful thing though is when we make decisions, truly make a decision where we cut off any other option, what happens is the universe goes, oh, that's where you're heading. Here's all the answers that you need to be able to get there. Let me provide them to you. And so that's what happened, is that I said to him, I was like, okay, but I need your help. I need you to help me research, because my brain was still not working effectively. I need some help to research X, Y, and Z. These are the things that I don't know the answers to. These are the things that I think we should be able to find answers to. Like, I need you to be my research person. And so he did. And through that process and through some conversations with some people, after we kind of let people know that this is what we were doing, other ways of treatment started becoming available and known to us. One of them was a frequency healing machine called the Spooky Rife machine. Very complex in the use of it, but highly, highly effective. And I think without that machine, I wouldn't have been as successful. And then it's a 12-month protocol. It ended up taking us 18 months because we cycled through a couple of them twice. And I needed a break sometimes. Oh my God. And the other thing was a protocol called Cell, which is a herbal treatment. And that was a 12-month treatment as well. So between the two of those treatments, we knew that we were in for 12 months. And then we cycled around that. And this is where that intuitive knowing, which is the point of this story, comes in. We cycled around that, some work with a naturopath, and she was helping me to supplement different nervous system supports and detox elements, although both of those protocols had a lot of detox in them. And then I was really listening to my intuition around what are the other therapies that I need to embrace here. So at different points in time, I went in acupuncture, I went in hyperbaric oxygen therapy, I went into lots of saunas, I went into naturally and intuitively started shaking every day, different forms of breath work, even different supplementary medications. So like things like turmeric came in for a period of time. And then I was like, I feel like just looking at it, looking at the box, my body went no. And I went, okay, I'm going to stop taking that now. So there were some fundamentals that I have to do this, I'm committed to these things. But even within those things, there was still opportunity. And my naturopath was amazing in her sharing around this of like, when you're treating a chronic condition, the difference is that you've got a little bit more leeway in regards to taking short breaks, right? If you're treating an acute condition, obviously you want to be very disciplined the whole way through. But when you're treating something that's chronic, it's more of a consistency thing that's important. And life, if we look at life and change in our life, it's more of a chronic condition, right? So we want to be more gentle with ourselves around, yes, I'm in this and I'm dedicated. Oh, I need a little bit of a break. Okay, cool. Now I'm going back and I'm dedicated. I'm in this. Oh, I just need a little bit of a break. And so I was able to start dancing with that and letting my body guide that whole process. And I truly feel like that intuitive guidance in and out, A, fundamentally changed how I deal with life, but B, was a huge piece of why we were able to actually get the results that we were, because nothing got burnt out.
Yes.
And even when I did have Herc's reaction, the Rife machine, thank God for that, has a little protocol in it where it actually has Herc support, which is the Herxing is when the Lyme's is dying out and you're getting the symptoms coming back. And so we would stop the treatment protocol, go on the Herc support, resolve the symptoms within 48 hours, and then go back into the treatment. And so, like, even in the treatment protocol, we actually had, based on the decision that was made, we had everything that it is that we needed to be able to move through it extremely effectively. And so I think, there was a couple of days in the early months that I still had drops, but after 7 months, the drops stopped. Like I was done with it. And so I've now been symptom free for a year and a month,
Yeah,
13
that's
months.
so amazing.
From Lyme's. I
Yeah.
still have some tails with the autoimmune conditions, but I'm looking at a stem cell therapy to knock those on the head.
Yeah, that's so cool. I again, it's one of those things you have to you have to do your research, you have to look at all of the different options available, but when you actually acknowledge that you want to, pathways open, opportunities open. And then it is also the intuitive part, like you said, because you can drive yourself crazy with all the restrictions. I am one of those people that I love the rules. Right. I like breaking them, definitely, but I love
Yep.
the rules. I like the strict, I must do this every day. And if I don't do it, well,
Yeah.
I must be failing. And it's yesterday
Yeah.
I had to talk myself off the ledge because I didn't do the thing that I said I was going to do every day. And it's not, I didn't break that commitment with myself. I just physically was exhausted. And I it was like, I need to rest. I don't need to do more things, but letting that go.
Yeah.
And this cycles back to that
Yeah.
original conversation about self-compassion and kindness. It is, be
Yeah.
kind. Like, you don't have to answer to anyone. You are constantly looking in the mirror of yourself, and if you need to take a break, that is okay. It is a pause. It's not coming back to it the next day. It is just, I actually just need to just be still. Today needs to be a day
Yeah.
I don't do anything. It's not failing. It's nothing. It is just let your body tell you what it needs. And
Yeah.
sometimes pushing through is going to make it worse. Sometimes pushing through is the thing that you need. When you most not want to do it
Yeah.
is actually when you do. And so you need to just trust.
And wisdom is knowing the difference.
Yeah, and the wisdom is knowing the difference. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where the humor comes into it, because life is, that's what makes it hilarious, because it's like, well, am I
Yeah.
talking myself out of it, or is this
Yeah.
actually truly what I need? And it is the polarity of our life, is where the humor is. It is like looking at, for everything that's good, there is something that's not so great, and everything that's not so great, there is something good. And allowing yourself to find the answer in both, and that comes back to that feminine masculine part as well that you were describing, keeping that in a balance. I have one
Yeah.
last question for you, and that
Hit
is,
me with it.
if you could transmit one core message to every person listening, one truth that could ripple through their leadership or their life, what would it be?
Life is a reflection of you, and life has your back. You also have your back, and you love yourself more than you could ever know. Love is not what is missing. Love is always being expressed. If you want to increase the quality of that, then focus on the quality of that, not the lack of it.
That is magical. It has been an absolute honor and a joy to talk to you today. I will absolutely have you back again, because I feel like we've only just sort of skimmed like the part one of this. together. But it has just been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here and have this conversation, and I trust that people listening have got some value out of it. So thank you.
Yes, I think for anyone listening, it will be worth a re-listen, but this time with a pen and paper, because there are so many threads. Like each answer had about 10,000 threads to it, and it'll be worth just taking that time to just sit and re-explore that. And I just love that so much. So yeah, thank you again, and I'll speak to you soon.